you?
Good to see you too.
Thank you for being here.
I'm just enjoying every minute of this beautiful weather.
It is beautiful, and you know, I want to talk to you about your history with Austin Country Club because it goes back a long ways, but let's go back even further. Austin and your family and your history in this town, in this city, goes back how long?
1898.
Wow.
Yeah. In Hayes County.
Okay.
I lived on a ranch west of Buda.
Okay.
But I went to Buda School, went to Austin High School, then the university.
And you played golf at the University of Texas for Harvey Penick.
Harvey Penick in 48, 49, 50, and 51. Yeah.
So by the time you went off to college, though, you were already a member at Austin Country Club, were you not?
Folks were. Yes.
Folks were.
Yeah. But see, we were first members in 44.
Okay.
So on Red River.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the club, which has had these three wonderful different sites, and now being here, and you were at both. So I want to talk.
I was at all three.
You were at all three.
Yeah.
Starting at Hancock Park.
Yes.
And then moving over to the Riverside.
Yeah.
Site.
Right.
And then here in 1984, but 1944, 80 years ago from right now, your family became members at this club. How much nourishment and joy did this club give you throughout your life?
Oh, it was just wonderful. It's the only place you could get a beer. Of course, I wasn't drinking when I was 15, but it was nice. It was a nice golf course. We had to buy city water, so only the greens were watered, and the tee boxes. The fairways weren't watered.
Right.
Yeah.
There was no back then. You didn't have centerline irrigation. Everything there was very little water put on a golf course.
That's right.
You know, 75, 80 years ago.
Right. That's right.
So, your interest in golf. Do you remember where it started?
Yes, because I was on the high school tennis team, and somehow I got crosswise with the tennis coach. My fault. So I decided to play golf, and I started playing golf at Muni in 1942.
Wow.
When I was 13.
Okay.
And I played from then on and kept playing and played in Austin High. Then I played for university, yeah.
What was it about the game of golf that you got from it that maybe you didn't get from tennis? What did you enjoy so much about it?
Well, it was outdoors.
Yep.
And you were your own. You know, you didn't have any. It
was all on you.
But even though a kid from Iowa won the state boys doubles championship in 1944 tennis.
Wow.
At the Penick courts at the University of Texas when they were in the northwest corner there by the stadium.
Okay.
And that was, we were 15 and under.
Wow.
And but then we started playing. The golf course on Riverside was finished in 48, but the club house wasn't finished for a year or so after that, but we started playing golf out there. And I actually played matches in the Southwest Conference at Hancock.
Okay.
But then if it was A&M, we would play at Muni because at Muni there was a lot more local knowledge that gave you an advantage. And we needed all the advantage we could get against the Aggies.
So did you play, when you were a boy and your parents had become members of the club, did you play golf with your dad?
He never played golf. He was a polo player.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So was it you finding friendships and relationships with boys your age? Were there other kids that you grew up with that went on to the University of Texas as members of the golf team like you were?
Oh, Morris Williams was by far number one. He was a great golfer.
Yep.
I wasn't in his league at all, but he was a year behind me in school. But then we played together for Harvey at UT.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Harvey because he's a member of the World Golf Hall of Fame, as he rightly should be. His imprint on players who had Hall of Fame careers like Kathy Whitworth
Yeah.
and Sandra Palmer and Betsy Rawls and
Yeah.
Tom Kite and Ben Crenshaw, but it's the other thousands of people like yourself that he impacted. What do you remember most about being around him?
Well, he wouldn't tell you much. In other words, if he had like Furyk with that funny swing, he would not have touched the swing. He liked the grip and the stance. And he said, just clip it off, just clip it off the tee. But he never told you much.
Right.
But that was the beauty of him.
One of the things, Gil, that I have heard through the years about Harvey, and one of the reasons why he was such an effective teacher and instructor, is that he did not talk about negatives. He didn't talk about things you did wrong.
Absolutely.
He only wanted to accentuate and talk about things and give you positive reinforcement. Was that your experience?
Yes, and with what you got. In other words, he didn't change anything. You know,
right.
that was the beauty of it. That he didn't change your swing or something. Now, he might tell you that, the whole club, because sometimes you let the club get away from your little finger if you're right-handed. He made you hold it, but otherwise he wouldn't tell you much at all. He'd just clip it off. But he was wonderful. And you know what? I never played a hole of golf with him.
Wow.
He never played with the team.
Never did?
Never did.
So what did he do? Did he just walk around and observe you guys playing? But
yeah.
And did when you were playing, obviously competitive rounds, did he ever talk to you in the middle of competition?
No, because he wasn't there.
Oh, okay.
In other words, he'd give us two golf balls, and then a little bit of money, and we'd go off to Fort Worth to play at Colonial or Ames, Iowa, or Albuquerque, New Mexico, but he'd give you two golf balls.
So those two golf balls were intended to last you for a whole college golf tournament?
Yep.
And how much of an allowance was he giving you? Maybe, what, a couple dollars?
Oh, yeah, it wasn't much, because, you could get a lunch at in a small city, you could get a nice lunch for 50 or 60 cents.
Yeah.
And that was 3 vegetables, a meat, a drink, and a dessert.
Wow. It's such good fortune for us to be able to talk to somebody who had experiences at all three sites.
Somebody that's old.
Well,
go ahead and say it.
Well, long life is a reflection of somebody who's lived life.
Yeah.
And clearly is somebody who loved to fish, hunt, ski, play golf. You had a very, very active, full life. All right, Bobby, let's go back to the first time you saw this site. As somebody who had spent some time in the state of Texas, in Houston, you establish yourself in the state of Tennessee, in the Memphis area, then you come here. What do you remember about seeing this place for the first time?
I think the biggest thing, with me being from seeing Houston, and Houston's a little on the flat side, I think the elevation changes here were what wowed me the first part. And then when you within the first year, you start nitpicking Pete's design and the troubles that it causes superintendents. We love the guy to death, but he loved to stick a thorn in our side any chance he got. So I think the bunkering here is one of my favorites. The way he shapes his bunkers, the way that a lot of these mounds are done, you just don't see it a lot. And there was a time in golf that it was big, but Pete continued on, stuck with his plan through his entire career, I think, and really stayed true to his design, and I think it paid off tremendously.
No question. The thing that's fun about coming back to golf courses or seeing it a lot is that you start to notice things and you discover things. What is over time something about this place that took some time for you to either appreciate, understand, see? What was it?
I think the thing that I appreciate the most about what Pete did here is the two different golf courses that we have. Down below by the river, we've got kind of the river holes, and and it's a neat design in its own right. And then you get up into the hills, and it lends more to classic Pete, I think, with a lot of elevation. And I think over time, at first I was a little hesitant about it. I was going, you know, it's different down there. It's all sand down there. We dredged it out of the lake, and
Yep.
and so we were managing it first, and over time I've grown to really appreciate it. And I think it's one of the things that makes this golf course unique is there's within the 18 holes, there's two central themes, more of a, and dare I say Scottish, but more of an open field down there, not a lot of trees, and then you get up here, tree lined, and it just, I think it creates it really gives to the uniqueness of the golf course.
To that point, you know, I think it's always fun when memberships get to see the best players in the world play their golf course. And here, for the years that the World Golf Championship was being conducted here, it's match play. It's also the one match play event of the year. But what does it say, Bobby, that from Scotty Scheffler to Bubba Watson to Jason Day, Billy Horschel, Kevin Kisner, that's as eclectic a mix of style as you could get. What does that say about this place?
I think it says a lot about the place. I think it really says, you know, I don't think this golf course fits one person's game, and it's evident by Kevin Kisner and Dustin Johnson, two totally different golfers who both won. And I think just, you know, the way the course plays, being match play, you know, those are grinding people, and it takes a lot. You know, it's not a long golf course by any stretch of today's standards.
Sure.
And I mean, we tip out a little over 7,000 yards, but then, you know, and so it didn't benefit anybody.
Right.
You know, Kisners can hang in with the DJs and the Kuchers and the big hitters, Roms.
Yes.
You know, that was interesting, seeing guys hit, you know, irons off par fours that
absolutely
most people don't. But I just think the way the design is, everything is around the greens, the difficulty of it, and the elevation changes, I think, too. So
I asked you about where golf came into your mind. How about when Harvey came into your life? Do you remember your first interaction with him?
Yes, I do. I'll never forget it. When I decided, he was at the old Austin Country Club years and years ago. And so I knew that I wanted to play because I wanted to play with my husband. So I went to Harvey, and because he was the pro there then. And I asked him if I could take some lessons. And he said, yes, Barbara, but you know, you could only have one teacher at a time. And I think he knew what was happening. He said, doesn't mean you can't go to another teacher and another teacher, but not at the same time. I said, oh, that's wonderful. I just stay right here, Harvey. As I see why, later years, I could see why that was so important.
He is, there's so many things about him, including his efficiency with words. He was not someone who was going to wear you out with soliloquy or filibustering on one thing or the other. Why do you think his teaching was so effective?
I think he helped people mentally as well as physically. He said things, even Tom Kite said he was a psychiatrist before his time because he taught that way. And I'll never forget something when I started playing and or any small tournaments, and he always said, a player that hits it, don't worry about anyone that hits it a lot farther than you do. He said, what determines the score is who gets in that hole first. So it was, he taught you to enjoy golf without the intimidation that everyone feels when they take up golf.
As somebody who has done a lot of teaching yourself, what do you think it is about someone's personality that allows them to work with so many different personalities, different levels of ambition and goals and ability? Why do you think it is that you were inclined to want to do that, and why do you think he was?
I think he loved teaching, and you know, he didn't have a teaching certificate, but the teaching, he loved it, and I think he adjusted his teaching to the type of personality he was teaching. I mean, look at Tom Kite and Ben Crenshaw, two different approaches to the game. And that happened with, that's why I learned from listening to him that he told different things to different people. So he adjusted his teaching, I think, to the personality of the person he was teaching. And I thought that was amazing, because I always thought, oh, you teach people the same thing, but he didn't. It was in different words, and they were just, I could understand why he appealed to so many different people. And everyone you talk to that has ever taken a lesson from him will have a story for you.
You said something to me earlier that I want you to share, and that was how he never accentuated negatives or things that you failed at. You would even appeal to him to say,
tell me what I did.
Tell me what I did wrong.
Right.
But he never would.
He never would. And you know, when you think about later in life, you should look at it the same way.
Right.
What can you do about that missed shot? And he always, whenever I asked him what I did wrong, he would say, why do you want to know? So I won't do it again. Why don't you do what I ask you to do? Then you won't do it again. And he never spoke in long teaching. It was, what he said was just, everything was so right to the point. And I remember another lesson he gave me when, this is after I'd been playing a lot, and I kept saying, I said, Harvey, I'm hitting behind the ball. I'm hitting behind. What am I doing? He said, he told me a couple of things, and I said, what am I doing wrong? And he told me, and I said, I still hit behind it. He said, well, and he told me something else. I still hit behind it. And finally he said, Barbara, I want you to go home, and I want you to take your club, and when you could clip an exact spot down there, clip that grass, come back for your lesson. I mean, how many people would say, go home and go back for your lesson? Well, that's what I did. And finally I came back and I said, I'm ready, I can do it. And then after I did, of course, I hit it fine. And I said, what is the story, Harvey? What did you do to me? He said, you'd been reading too many books and you'd been listening to too many people, Barbara.
Wow.
He said, you have to think, you know, you can only think one thought. Absolutely.
As far as this place, Austin Country Club, as somebody who's been a member here for more than 50 years,
Yes.
Why do you think this place is what it is?
I think Harvey set the foundation of the club, and what it meant, and the members that moved with it has carried that with them, the foundation that we had always. And so I think that's what meant so much to this club. They still quote Harvey. I mean, they still talk about him, and it's just still a part of it, of the growth of the club. And I think that had to do with Harvey and Tom and Ben and Davis Love, Sandra Palmer, Mark, you know, all those great players have come with history of working with Harvey.
The culture of this place, it's great if you have kids who become really good golfers. To me, the greatest testament is kids who become lovers of golf. And that is a byproduct of the environment. So all these generations, like Tom Kite growing up with kids who he's still friends with today,
Yes.
and kids here who become members of this place, isn't that a reflection of golf being so redeemable that they make it a part of their lives?
Absolutely, you're so right. Yes, and to think that since junior high school, they were on my golf team too. Since junior high school, we still know them, and still in our background, knowing that that's part of it.
Right.
So that I'm sure some other clubs have perhaps achieved the same thing, but this one has really had the growth, or maintained what you're talking about, what you've asked. They've maintained it throughout its growth. They won't. There's statues out there to remind you.
Yes, there are. One of the other things is managing the expectations of a student, and Harvey working with so many people. But particularly, I want to ask you about the dynamic of working with kids whose parents also have ambition for that kid. And that's not easy. And it certainly changed a lot since he's been gone. But it doesn't mean that it wasn't challenging then. What do you think made him so effective at managing the relationship of working with kids who you want first to find joy in the game, but then also the parents whose expectations may exceed what is realistic? How was he so effective at that?
You know, I wonder about that. I don't know how he handled that, but every every child that did grow and loved golf, I he must have been a part of their love of it,
Mm.
because you can't teach a child to love something they don't want to love, uh, and I think he ins- gave that inspiration to kids,
Mm.
and and the parents. He I don't know how he managed this, except there were never parents that were overbearing.
Mm.
Now they loved their child. They'll see that they had lessons. They'll see they had their clubs. They'll see everything. But I don't think they were ever overbearing. And I knew Tom Kite's parents, and I knew Crenshaw's,
Right.
so I knew they weren't. I knew they weren't. I didn't. I really didn't know any parents that were. I know Sandra Palmer was a student as well,
Yes.
and she came here, and I don't know. I never knew how her parents. I'm not sure, but she came here and stayed here to
Mhm.
learn from him, and
Right.
I'm not sure how that related to parents. But he must have had something we didn't know, because I never saw a parent that was overbearing. I
Mm.
did see one or two, but I wouldn't mention who it was.
Sure.
But I also saw them. Uh, either they didn't continue the game or they continued it without their parents.
Right.
One of the two.
Sure. To have a club that is celebrating 125
Mhm.
years,
Yes.
and over the course of 3 different sites,
Mhm.
and coincidentally, now just hiring a 4th golf professional
Right.
in the history
Right.
of the club.
Right.
What does that say?
To be a part of it, I think everyone who is here or in it, and to bring more golf pros into it, I think they all feel like the members that have had this experience belong and want to preserve it.
Mm.
And then anyone that's coming in, they will teach them. They will learn it too, somehow, and they'll learn it and feel the same way with the importance
Sure.
of it, because they can feel the feeling of the members and the golfers that have that feeling of being a part of it forever, and they
Sure.
pass that on to their juniors, that same loyalty.
But what about the history of the University of Texas golf program and Austin Country Club? Give me your perspective on it.
Well, when I first got here, August 1st, 1997, I did not have I knew it was a storied program, greatness, Harvey Penick, Tom Kite, Ben Crenshaw. That's Justin Leonard, Mark Brooks, all of our major champions. And then I had been around the program a little bit as a player. I played at New Mexico from 1977 through 81. Kurt Byram and Tommy Armour III were my teammates there at New Mexico. So we had a really nice program, but it was nowhere near the program that Texas was, even at that time. We were good, but Texas had the potential always to be great. So that's kind of what my limited knowledge of Texas was. I really didn't know Austin, Texas. I did not know Austin Country Club at the time. I quickly came up to speed because we needed help from Austin Country Club for our program to grow. It's odd because this is the 125th birthday of the Austin Country Club. But right now, Texas men's golf is 98 years old. It has 106 victories on the PGA Tour. 38 of those came from Tom Kite and Ben Crenshaw. 3 major championships among them. And then, of course, we then had Mark Brooks and Justin Leonard, and now we've had Spieth and Scheffler that have gone on to win major championships. But Texas golf is 98 years old. It has 106 victories on the PGA Tour, and it has 10 major championships with 6 major champions. And the base of that, the core of that, really is Harvey Penick, who was, I think, in the early, maybe the late teens or early 20s, became the head golf professional here at Austin Country Club.
When he was 19 years old.
Right, 19 years old. And then later on, in 1930 or thereabouts, he replaced his brother, who had been our first head coach, Tom Penick, from 1927 to 30, and then Harvey from 1930 to 1962. And in that time frame, he had brought up multiple great golfers from the Austin Country Club. The first great one really was Morris Williams.
Mm.
And Morris and his father was a journalist, and sadly, Morris had success in college golf, was won what was called then the Texas Grand Slam. So he won the Texas Junior, and at that time you could be 21 years old and still play in the junior tournament. He won the Texas State Amateur, and then he won the Texas State Open, which was the Texas value to the Grand Slam. So that was the Grand Slam that particular year. And he decided to join the military. The Korean conflict was on, and became a fighter pilot, and sadly in a training exercise, I think in Pensacola, Florida, was killed in they were doing strafing runs, and I've heard members talk about it here, that there was target fixation and he went right into the ground, and sadly that was the end of Morris Williams Jr., and that was very difficult for this entire club at the time to lose him as not only a member of the United States military, but also a member of the Austin Country Club, and then one of Harvey's most valued young golfers.
Mm-hmm.
And then along came Ben Crenshaw and Tom Kite. Actually, Tom Kite first,
Yeah.
and then Ben Crenshaw. They're 2 years apart. And they matriculated all the way to national champions in 1971 and 72 as a team. Ben won the 1971 NCAA. He won the 1972 NCAA, where he tied Tom Kite. Funny story, because they were about to go play it off, and the coach at the time, George Hannon, who had replaced Harvey Penick, said, "You know what, I can have one national champion or I can have two. We're not playing this thing off." And so they ended up not playing it off, and you had co-champions in the NCAA that year, Ben Crenshaw and Tom Kite in 1972. And then Ben went on to win it again in 1973. He won 3 years in a row the Fred Haskins Award, which is our complement to the Heisman Trophy. Those two, and there was great golfers before them, but that really was a time frame that ignited Texas golf and Texas golf's history. There had actually been tour winners before that. Rick Massengale won multiple times on the PGA Tour, and there was other players that played for Harvey that had won. But to end up with 106 victories right now, and counting, we're not done yet.
No.
With players like Spieth and Scheffler, those guys came here for a reason. Both of them fell in love with Austin Country Club. Scotty Scheffler played a state amateur here. This club's always been dynamic in terms of reaching out and being a part of the community. So they've had multiple championships here, not to mention the Dell Championship on the PGA Tour. But this club has always been a friend to the community. It's been a friend to UT Golf, thank God, or we wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be sitting here today if it had not done that. And I count the members, I count the board of directors, I count our head pros that have been here. And what's wild is there's only been 4 head pros.
It's beyond extraordinary.
It is. And Texas Golf is 98 years old, and there's been 5 coaches, and I'm the 5th. I've been here 28 years. Before me was Jimmy Clayton for about 16 years. Before him, it was George Hannon for about 19 years. Harvey was there for 32 years. I don't know if I'm going to catch him. I'm at 28, and I just signed a 5-year contract, so maybe. And then his brother for 4 years. But that's it. And the lineage for head pros here was Harvey Penick, Tinsley Penick, Dale Morgan, and now CW. And so I'm thrilled for all of those people that were involved in the decision-making process to make sure that this was a historic place. A lot of places change golf pros all the time. Not this club. And I think that's intrinsic to the mentality here of golf in general, in Central Texas and the city of Austin, and then with a certain lean towards the Longhorns. And that's just simply because of the success of the place. I've always enjoyed being here because of the attitude that exists here. And what I mean is just being around success.
Instruction's an interesting thing in all walks. Like, a lot of people don't want to be told how to do things. They want to kind of try to figure it out on their own. But taking lessons, finding improvement, seeing light in areas that maybe you hadn't seen before. Why do you think that people who are members here and always have, juniors, men, women, seniors, have been inclined to try to seek improvement from their professional staff here? Why?
I think I think Harvey and Tinsley both teed it up for us. I mean, they believed in making, their joy in life really came from making people better at the game of golf. And I think that inspiration that they had in trying to do that, especially Harvey and Tinsley too, rubbed off on all of us. We had another great guy by the name of Jackson Browley, who was a great player and a great teacher, and he was teaching here when I first got here also, and he taught a little bit with Harvey and a little bit with Tinsley. And Jackson was another one who just instilled this learning ability of the game of golf. And I think our membership just really gravitated towards that, and they all wanted to get better. And everybody that came here, whether they worked for Harvey or they worked for Tinsley or they worked for me, always wanted to make sure that everybody understood that teaching came first here. And that's what this place was all about. And I hope that will continue for another 125 years. I really
Sure. Let me ask you about Tom Kite, because his relationship with this club, it's intimate, it's daily. The presence of somebody who, I don't think people understand that Tom Kite won the Bob Jones Award in 1979. He was not even in the prime of his career yet, but he had distinguished himself in such a way. Inside of a decade of leaving college, he was the Bob Jones Award winner and subsequently went on, Ryder Cup captain, major champion, World Golf Hall of Fame. What has his presence here on a regular basis for decades meant to the foundation of this place?
Tom has always loved this club, and not just because Harvey was here, but, his mom and dad, when they moved from Dallas and they joined this club, it became part of their life, and it was part of all their lives. And Tom's mom and dad, were great players and on their own part and played a lot of golf. And so I think Tom always had this feeling that he was always going to be at Austin Country Club. No matter where Austin Country Club ended up or whatever happened, he was going to be here. And so I think, for me personally, when I first met him, there's a little bit of awe there. You're meeting.
Sure.
First time he asked me to play golf with him, I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to be able to handle this? I hope I don't shoot 100 playing with him, right? And I'm so fortunate now to get to play a lot of golf with him and be around him a lot. And he's like all the rest of us. He believes that the game of golf is more than just a sport, that it's part of life of everybody, and especially at this club. And whether he's out there hitting balls on the range today, which he still does, and he'll stand out there for 4.5 hours and hit balls just like he did when he was grinding on the tour. And he's always working on something. He's always trying to get better. But if someone is hitting balls next to him and they're struggling a little bit, he'll turn to them and he'll give them some tidbit or some little bitty lesson that maybe Harvey told him. And he'll try to make them better. And I think that, to me, Gary, is something that truly is so special about Tom Kite, is that it's not just about him, it's about this club, it's about the membership and the membership getting better. And to this day, anything he can do to try to make that happen, he's going to do it.
Yeah, to me, great clubs are great for varying reasons because they're in different places. Los Angeles is different from Austin, as is different from Westchester County, New York. But the great qualities of this club that you said when you got here, I don't want to screw it up. What were those things? What were those things, the tenets, the principles that make this place what it is, that still hold up today? What are they?
I think that's a great question. I think Austin Country Club really truly started out as a golf club, and it evolved into a country club over the years. But it never lost the grassroots side of being a golf club, and it still has it today. And I think because of that, the membership join this club and want to be around this club as much as they can because of the game of golf. That really is what it. Yes, it's a social club to a certain extent, but that's not what it started out being, and that's not what it's become. It's just part of it. It's still a golf club, and I tell people all the time, well, we shut the golf course down, there's not a lot of people around here, but when that golf course is going full speed ahead, there's people everywhere, and it creates that excitement. And so, I think the members that joined this club and became and stayed at this club, like Barbara Pewitt and Ron Pewitt, those people instilled in other members how important the game of golf was to this club. And I just think that's what's kept it going the way it is today.
To see juniors take an interest, it might be mild at the beginning, and find joy, maybe even love in the game of golf, maybe even some achievement in the game of golf, and then come back, and whether it's become regular members, which I'm certain many have. How rewarding has that been, and then nourishing for you as a man who's devoted his career to being a steward to the game of golf as a PGA of America member?
Probably one of the biggest joys any golf professional can have is teaching 3 generations of the same family, or 4 generations of the family. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to do that. And I've been able to see these young people who started out at Sadie Engelman, who started out at 3 years old. I can remember her dad teeing the ball up on the driving range, and here she is, had a wonderful career at Stanford, and is just a great human being and a great person. And that's what's always really set this place apart, I think, to a certain extent. A lot of that's been with Harvey and Tinsley and Anne-Marie Gildersleeve, who's been our director of instruction for so long. Not only has she grown really good players, they've grown really good people. And these young people come back here as junior members, and they still have the same respect and the same love for the game that they learned as they were growing up. And to me, that's like the ultimate. When I'm so fortunate, my son-in-law and my daughter are members here. They grew up at this club. They've met each other at this club. They're now married. I have 2 grandchildren. They're going to grow up at this club, and to me, that's like the ultimate for any golf professional or for any member, to be able to see your children, really kind of come through that stage and grow up and become the next stewards of the game and stewards of this membership.
Yeah, for most certainly. I want to ask you now about Tom Kite and Ben Crenshaw, because as somebody who tries to know something about who came before them, there are not 2 people who literally grew up together who have achieved what those 2 guys have achieved from this place. Members of the club when it was at someplace else, Tom's still very present today. For them to be together today, tonight, on that stage, just the reward that is for all these people
Oh yeah,
who have loved these guys
absolutely.
their whole lives and have lived and died watching golf shots on television going
That's
back
right.
40 years.
That's right.
And here they're going to be tonight sharing thoughts about a central figure in their life that they shared in Harvey and this club. That's got to mean a great deal to you.
You know, it does, Gary, and you know, I'm from that generation of player, and
Yeah.
watching them achieve such greatness in their lives as players and people has been so rewarding for me. And I mean, they're my heroes. I mean, there's no question. They were my golf heroes growing up. I grew up about 3 hours from here, and that's all I could think about was Tom Kite and Ben Crenshaw and how good they were. And they and then coming down here and having the opportunity to meet them and be around them and realize how wonderful of people that they are and how different they are, but yet how much both of them loved Harvey Penick, and how much they respected him, and that respect and that love has not wavered one time, and not even to today. I guarantee you, it's hard for them to talk about Harvey without getting emotional, and that's how much of a figure he was to them, a father figure to them. But and me personally, as a young kid who grew up, got an opportunity to meet his childhood heroes and be around them and play golf with them. It's incredible, and I can remember the first time that Ben and Tom played out here with some of their childhood buddies that they grew up with. It was like, it might as well been Sunday at the Masters, because everybody, you could hear the buzz around the club. Ben and Tom were playing together, Ben and Tom. And it was just so cool to see them in a situation now that they're, not playing golf competitively anymore, but still hanging out with their buddies. They're guys that they grew up with in high school and having a blast out on the golf course. It was just phenomenal. They're great people. It's
Great people, great representatives for the game of golf, for this city, for this state, for this club. It's amazing. So as we look ahead, 125 down, going forward, what do you expect that the next 125 years at this club? So much will change.
Sure.
It's inevitable. What won't, and why?
What I hope and what I believe will happen is that the love for the game won't go away. That golf is the common denominator that makes this club successful, that makes the people here so happy. We're blessed to have a wonderful golf course designed by a wonderful man in Pete Dye, and it's one of those golf courses you never get tired of playing. So I think that helps also to just keep people coming back for more, because they love the golf course and they love trying to beat it. I think this club will continue to have some of the best people in Austin, Texas that are members of it. I don't think they'll ever forget their history. I think the history of this club will continue to be always on the forefront. Nobody's ever going to forget about Harvey, and they shouldn't. And if that happens over the next 125 years, this club will continue to be as special as it's been for me for the last 28 years.
Last thing with you talking about special to you, what was and remains the greatest reward of representing this club for you, for the time that you did and still do as the emeritus in the position you're in?
Well, one, I'm super blessed to have that title, have a title that only Harvey had, and I feel pretty special to have that. And so it's important to me to make sure that no matter where I'm at around the country, that I'm always representing Austin Country Club. I used to always tell my assistants when they came to work for me, I said, one thing you got to remember, about coming to work at Austin Country Club is that you will always be representing Austin Country Club, and you should never forget that. I said, because Harvey never forgot it, Tinsley never forgot it, and I tried not to ever forget it. And I said, if you can always do that, and you can always keep Austin Country Club on the front burner when you're out, and when you're thinking, when you're around members, this place will always be special. And it'll always be special to you and be a place that you truly always want to work at.
Mm. You're a credit to the game. You're a credit to this club. What a wonderful celebration.
It is.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy, let me start with you. You said something to me that you need to explain to everybody. You said, I didn't start playing golf until after I was married. You're growing up in a household with one of the most respected, distinguished voices in the history of golf. Why didn't you have any interest in playing golf, being around your dad, until after you got married?
I just didn't have much interest in golf, and he wasn't the type of person that would push you into something if you weren't interested. When you became interested in it, then he was all there for you. But he wasn't one of these parents that say, come on, you got to do this, and I'm so thankful for that.
Which is a great lesson for any parent.
Right.
Whether it's today or any day going forward. It's interesting because I have heard that in talking today to a number of people who have history here, and a lot of history here, that he was so positive with people. He never accentuated negative things in their golf swing, the way that they played. He focused on positive things. What are your reflections?
I regret that I didn't take advantage of somebody that famous when I was a kid. I took some lessons from him, but not nearly enough.
What do you remember about a lesson with Harvey Penick?
It was something hard to do. What he would tell you to do, he was correcting an error, but it was very informative. And I really regret I didn't take more lessons from him. I played golf, but it wasn't anything seriously.
What are the things that you remember most about your dad, the qualities that were so endearing and so impactful on you?
Well, you're thinking of him as a golfer. I think of him as my, not dad, our father, but my daddy. And he was always there for me. And I had bad dreams at night, and I'd wake up and he would be there for me. And he didn't push me to do anything, but he was the type of person that you didn't want to disappoint him. So you don't want to do anything that would disappoint him. I can't exactly explain it. But like I said, he was just my daddy, and I didn't think of him as a professional. I did when he babysat me. Now, this is my first lesson. He paid me to hit golf balls, out there, because he was the babysitter, and that was my entertainment. So anyway, that might be interesting. But
So how much did he pay you to hit golf balls?
I think it was a nickel.
a nickel.
Something like that.
You had to be incentivized. I mean, a nickel probably felt like
A lot of money. That's right.
As far you mentioned about taking lessons from him and that it could be challenging. Was there anything that you experienced in taking the lessons that you took with Harvey did you have any light bulb moments with him?
Oh, I was around him most of my life.
Yeah.
And I would say Harvey was a gentleman's gentleman. He was just a kind soul that everybody loved him.
It's hard to really imagine that he's been gone as long as he has. And obviously we're going to have Tom and Ben up here a little bit later to reflect on not only his life, but also the club. Why do you think he got so much joy out of what he did and did every day for decades, for generations of people?
He loved the game, and he loved people.
It was that simple.
Well, that's my impression.
Yeah. in terms of people, you mentioned him, and this is the fun part for me, is that I would prefer you not talk about him as the instructor, because people have read a lot about his teachings, his lessons, which he was kind of like a philosopher. It was almost like he was not only teaching golf, he was teaching, as you said, gentlemanly etiquette, things that you would want to impart upon other people. Your dad. Did your dad have a sense of humor? Did you ever see your father laugh out loud?
Oh, I can remember him. This was one funny thing. He brought this book home to my mother, and she opened it, and all these snakes flew out. You know? One thing of his sense of humor.
Speaking of books, all of his writings that turned into one of the best-selling books of all time, did that astound you?
Oh, yes, it did. It did. My husband, Bill, he said, oh, it's going to be a great book. It's going to be sell all over the world. But I thought, no. But I was surprised. So
You had trepidation that it wasn't going to do that well.
I thought, yeah, it's going to be a book, but
it's not going to be a New York Times bestseller,
That's
the biggest
right.
golf selling book of all time. You
That's
didn't
right.
anticipate that.
no, not at all.
Yeah. How about you, Charles? Did you read that book and say, yeah, I got that lesson?
I've read that book probably 15 times, and I see something in there that thinking, boy, I didn't see that the last time. I mean, that book is unbelievable how well written it is about golf and life. And it's just it's Harvey.
Right. I think part of it, and I think part of why his legacy not only endures here, but really everywhere, is there was an authenticity to him. There was a tenderness to the way that he was with people, which maybe people don't experience a lot of that. And what's interesting, Kathy, to me, is that he was a teenager when he got the job. We could sit here for 100 lifetimes, and a teenager's not going to be the head pro at one of the best clubs in
I know,
America.
that's
again.
amazing to me, too.
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
I mean, I can't fathom it.
Why do you think that he was capable of that position at such a young age? Obviously, you started to understand your father when he was a grown adult man. He'd experienced life. Why do you think maybe he was capable of taking on the position at such a young age?
I can't answer that. I've thought about that a lot, and I just can't fathom it, actually.
Sure. How about you, Charles? Why do you think a 19-year-old?
I think the people saw something in Harvey that they loved and wanted him to be there. I mean, he started out as a caddy. He and my dad started out as caddies there, and knew all the members through that. And I'm sure that was a good job interview for him.
Absolutely. The club itself, from Hancock Park to Riverside to here, the Penick family has always been the constant. What about this club? Why do you think, Kathy, he was always happy? Because if you're good at something, other people may want your services, but he never went anywhere. He was always here, whether it was here, his contributions as the coach of the University of Texas. Why do you think he was always content at this club?
Because he never accepted failure. And I mean, and he would not let you downgrade anything. Everything was positive, not negative, no. Positive, yes, always. So he had that positive outlook. And maybe when he was younger, he thought, I can do this. And so he did it.
He did it his whole life.
His whole life.
Yeah. Charles, do you think that because he impacted so many people, I naturally, I cover golf, the fact that he worked with two men who virtually the same age, grow up, have Hall of Fame careers, but beyond that, Kathy Whitworth and Sandra Palmer and Betsy Rawls. He worked with Hall of Fame players. But you probably believe that he got as much enjoyment having somebody's handicap go from 13 to 9 over the course of a couple years, didn't he?
I think so. Yeah, I think he took joy in giving golf lessons.
Kathy, what would you think of all this? 125 years of the club's history.
I can't think of it. I can't. It just is, but I can't believe it. And when I look around and see my dad's picture everywhere,
Does that give you a great source? Is it a great source of pride, humility,
yes.
gratitude, all of it probably?
a great sense of pride. But like I said, and even to this day, and I think it's kind of crazy that a person my age, which I'm not going to tell you right now, but
Actually, hold on a second. She did.
I did.
She said, "I've never been interviewed, and I'm not going to repeat." You told me. You told me.
That's right. But anyway, I still call him Daddy, and he's not my father, and he's not the golf pro, but he's my daddy, and that's the way I think about it.
Mm-hmm. Are there any photos you've seen here that you haven't seen? Or there's some you're going, "I've never seen that picture," or have you seen all of these?
I haven't looked at them all, but there's a lot of them I haven't seen.
Yeah.
Actually, but I do have a memory of being out here with my grandparents. I was probably around 6. I really wasn't too interested in golf at that time. I was more interested in filling divots. So I was just, my brother, my dad, my grandfather, we were all out here. I think it was on 17, and I just wanted to fill divots.
Wow.
But I don't remember the first time I hit golf balls.
Okay. Matthew, I got a little intel about you from your mom.
No doubt.
And now apparently you begged out of a trip to Disney World just to stay here. You're like, "I don't want to go to Disney World. I want to be here." And here was literally here. Why did you love this place so much, like immediately?
I think just ever from my first time, just being up on the driving range, just kind of felt like home to me. It was a place I could just go and beat balls and, have some time to myself. And it just was it was my Disneyland. I didn't need to go. I didn't know all the characters or the rides or anything like that. I just needed just a place to hit golf balls.
Seth, you were similar, right? I mean, this place came into your life at a very young age. Yeah. And you were here a lot as a little boy, were you not?
No, I think this was kind of where I was babysat. Parents would say, "Hey, Seth, you're going to hang out all day at the club. Just figure it out," which I'm sure was a lot of fun for me. I mean, I think it's funny. My mom was kind of telling me when I was, I guess, 2.5, we lived right across from 14T. And so she said that I'd always look out at that tee and say, "Hey, I want to go whack a ball." So I think that was kind of the first kind of get into it. But yeah, the amount of hours I've spent out here, it's a lot.
A lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And I've got to be careful with this because the framing is kind of fragile. But this is you.
Yeah.
With Harvey Penick.
Yeah.
This is as sweet and as tender a photograph as you will ever see of somebody who he probably doesn't know it at the time is going to make golf a big part of his life.
Yeah.
With someone who was a beacon of light in this game. Do you have any recollection? I don't mean of this photo, but of him?
I do a little bit. I mean, I think the memories and hearing it from my parents and the people around me, just how special that moment was. I mean, we lived, I guess, walking distance from his house. And so he could easily have just cruised by our house and gone to the club. But he took the time to stop, let me, jump on his golf cart. I think I was 2-3 years old at that point. And so thinking back on it, it's such a cool memory and moment that I was able to have,
Bentley, you go from wanting to just fill divots to then starting to play golf and getting better. How much did this environment make you a better player?
A lot. Like I think Matthew said, and Seth, this became almost like a second home to me. I got dropped off after school and spent countless hours out here. And I got to practice and play games with people like Matthew and my brother and people my age. And it was a blast. Everybody pushed me. And I would say every single one of us we were good golfers. So we all pushed each other, and that was really influential on me to become, who I am today and the golfer I am today.
Matthew, I've got your first driver here. This is actually his first driver. You have one small little dummy mark up here in the.
It was not me. That was definitely Seth. I don't know.
How many golf balls do you think you hit with that driver? You probably aged out of it pretty quickly.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, that's a pretty stout shaft.
I remember
2 feet long.
Matthew had the brand new nice Titleist clubs that you'd get cut down. You always had the nicest clubs.
Is that true?
When I got a little older, they didn't help much, but.
Now, I also have your first iron, which has Harvey's name on it.
Mm-hmm.
And you obviously remember this too, don't you?
Oh yeah, I remember going and getting these. We went to I went with Anne Marie to the original Golfsmith headquarters on I-35, and went somewhere and hit balls and what would have been, I guess, an original launch monitor, and came out with these bad boys, a Harvey Penick Fire Steel. Good clubs.
Yes. A lot of people have said to me, you need to ask these two, and it's important that we start at the beginning, because really in the history of golf, if you think about it, there have not been two people who truly grew up playing golf together and I use with these two guys the comparison of Affirmed and Aladar in 1978. Now, Affirmed won every race. In this case, it was Affirmed would win a race, then Aladar would win a race. They were in photo finishes in all three of the stakes races in 1978. The fact is, these two gentlemen sitting up here tonight, who were junior golfers at this club, had two of the most distinguished careers in the history of golf, not just playing, both being the recipients of the Bob Jones Award, both being Ryder Cup captains, and the fact that one succeeded the next, that two kids who met, I believe, in the parking lot of the Austin Country Club would simultaneously embark on two journeys in this game as distinguishable as anybody is a remarkable thing, and here they sit. So let's start with that encounter in the parking lot. Now, it's my understanding that Ben and Charlie, you and your brother, had maybe played 9 holes and you were making the turn, and there was a kid who just moved from Dallas. From my understanding, had a new bag. He was wearing slacks, and it was like 105 degrees. Looked like a tour player, and he was 12 years old. Was that Tom Kite, Ben?
That's exactly right. My brother Charlie and I had finished number 9. We were going up through the practice tee, and here
I'm going to rebuttal.
And here he is. He does have slacks on, but what caught my attention was this red golf bag with brand new Wilson staff irons, and I went, "Wow, that!" Charlie and I were playing ladies clubs, and junior clubs, but I mean the clubs were unbelievable. So I think we asked you to play the back 9 with us.
We did.
So we're on number 10 tee at the old club right by the road. And, Tom, these are men's length clubs. We're all kind of small. So he took a swing at it, and it didn't go so well. But
Oh, it went way
Charlie
worse
and I
than
looked
that.
at each other and said, well, those are men's clubs. But you know what? First of all, before we say anything about ourselves, we'd like to wish a happy anniversary to this club. 125 years. And to think that we know so many people here who've been so much a part of our lives, that have been under Harvey's spell forever. Would be forever grateful for that. But all the individuals that we've played with, and the people that stories and the people and the experiences, Tom and I are very enriched by this club. And it's certainly myself more so at the old club, but can't tell you what a great facility this is. It's been the scene of so many wonderful tournaments, and it's a great golf course designed by a wonderful architect, Pete Dye. But we have, I was thinking about this last night. You know, Harvey wanted us to play the game, and I want you boys to go out there and play golf, but I want you guys to end up on the putting green, and I want you to putt against each other. And I said, you know, that brought up a memory for me. It's, you know, Tommy and I would putt. We'd all putt. And Chuck Munson, Richard Baratti, we'd all putt. But I remember when I was a little kid, our tennis coach, Colonel Allison, would come out on the putting green, and he'd have this Ben Hogan putter with a putter cover, and he would come on the edge of the green, and I noticed he had a glass of lemonade. And I mean, he was a good player, very keen player, wonderful, wonderful tennis coach. You know, he won the Wimbledon doubles, and I mean, he was and a great guy. And I was little. I said, Harvey, I said, Colonel Allison comes out here every day. He brings that glass of lemonade with him every day. Well, Harvey looked at me and said, there may be something stronger than that lemonade. But I mean, the most wonderful people we grew up with. I can still see Walter Benson hit a golf shot.
Oh, yeah.
Which was unbelievable. And I can still see Roan all the time. Roan, Billy Penn.
Yeah. George McCall.
George McCall. Sweet swing. They called George Sweet swing. But,
Roan still shoots his age every day.
I know it. He can beat us all. And his wife, Barbara, I always, when I was really young, I watched her put her hands on the club. That's the way to grip the club. Beautiful hands. And got that memory of all these people that we grew up with. We were so damn lucky, it was unbelievable. But 125 years, you know, there's not many clubs in the country who can say that. 1899, that's...
Tom, is there anything about the story that you would like to ratify or amend?
Well, Ben said you know, it didn't go too good. No, it didn't go nearly that well. I mean, it was way worse than that. You know, as he said, I had this new set. I had played they have a wonderful junior tournament up in Wichita Falls, and I had gone up there, and I had at the time I had a lady set of clubs, and of course this is the Texas-Oklahoma Junior, and they just have 1,000 kids that play in the tournament every year, and my clubs were stolen. Went in, finished my round, went in to have lunch, come back. I thought the kids were all playing jokes on me, hiding my clubs, but turns out they were stolen. And so right before we moved down here, when I was 12 years old, Mom and Dad decided to get me a set of clubs. And as Ben said, we were small, and the clubs were a little too big, and you know, the club got to the ground a little quicker than I wanted it to. And I took the most beautiful divot right behind the ball. The club bounced right over the ball, and the ball was just sitting right there, and never moved. You know, and I looked up, and it's like, oh, Lordy, this is not going to be good. And Ben and Charlie both just went, you know, kind of like, oh. And we asked this kid to come join our group, and fortunately, it got a little better after that. But yeah, it was a rough beginning. But
you know, it improved rapidly, and you know, you know, it is kind of rare that you've had two golfers that have done a few good things, but I always knew if I could get close to Tom and compete with him. Competition is always the best.
Are y'all buying that, really? I didn't buy that BS when we were 13 years old. I'm sure not buying it right now. No,
You know, I'll say this too. I'll say this too. I'm thinking about this before I came. This man here has probably, I mean, this is a conservative guess, has probably hit 1 million more balls than I have. And I'm not kidding.
On that note, Tom, we're sorry we had to close the range today for the Ferris wheel.
Yeah, exactly. I was a little ticked off about that. You know, of all the things you hear from Ben tonight, most of them are not going to be true, but that one might be true.
I know it is.
That might be the truth.
I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
How, as you're progressing, and that's the other part about this, it's not only style, it's personality. There's a distinction between the two of you. How aware were you of him and you of him as you were ascending? Because you're around each other every day. And there's a phrase that I think is important, especially for young people, that comparison can be the thief of joy. That focusing on yourself is important and don't worry about where somebody else is in the race. Was it hard at times to always be measured against him?
Well, Gary, you know, when we were 12, and well, I'm 2 years older than Ben, so I'm 12, Ben's 10. You know, we were pretty decent players for 12-year-olds and juniors. But my gosh, look, I mean, you look across this room right now and see a bunch of people that were older than we were that were way better. You know, Harvey had I mean, Austin, Texas at the time when we moved down here had 250,000 people. We moved down here in 1962, which was the year that they completed Interstate 35 through Austin. It's never been worked on since. So, but you know, for a town that small, and basically it was you know, we had a few public golf courses, but it was a one club town. You know, everybody that could afford to be a member of the Austin Country Club was. There really wasn't any other club in town, and I will guarantee you there were more single-digit handicaps in this town, you know, whether you're a member of the Austin Country Club or not, than, you know, Dallas or Houston or any of the towns, I mean, almost put together, because everybody took lessons from Harvey. Or if you didn't take lessons from Harvey, you took lessons from somebody who had taken lessons from Harvey. You know, be it Coach Hannon or Felix George or guys like that they were great teachers. Joe Ballander, that great teachers around town that taught so many people. So, you know, the environment that we grew up in, yes, I was aware of him. I knew he was good, but my gosh, I mean, you know, Rowan and Billy and George McCall and Lester Lundell, and I mean, there's just a list of people. You know, Lester Lundell, I mean, he won the city junior, he won the city amateur, he won the city senior, he won the city super senior. I mean, he is probably one of the best athletes that's ever graced Austin, Texas, and you know, he was a few years older than we were, and we just had so many. You know, we had the great guidance of Harvey, but we had so many role models that were so much better than we were, and for us to, I mean, I can remember the first time in the city championship, I drew Roan Hewitt, and it's like, oh my God, this is not going to be pretty, but you know, and it wasn't. He thumped me pretty good.
But Harvey encouraged us to play with older, who were just a little bit older than we were. So he said you could get it in your mind's eye as to what they were doing and what their tempo and their swings are like. And he encouraged us to do that.
Him as a teacher, obviously the world got to know his messaging in his philosophy. But the things that he imparted upon you guys, kids are kids. There's a frivolity to being a kid, which is glorious. So a lot of things wash right over you. Did the things that he started to impart upon you, Ben, did they stick right away, or did it need reinforcement every day from him?
It wasn't subliminal, but it was very, very evident. I mean, I can remember, this is so crazy, but when we were really young, we'd hit a ball and your tee would go just a little bit. He said, pick up that tee. He didn't like clutter. He wanted, in other words, one day he said, you know, a mower's got to go over that tee. So pick that thing up. Things like that. It's so simple, but that's a nod to the green superintendent, and it's just something you learn very, very. You're thinking about others. You're thinking about other people, and everything that Harvey said and did, he had other people in mind. He was the kindest person I've ever met, other than my mother.
Well, one of the things that I've heard from people throughout the day that I've spent some time with, including his daughter. Where is she? There she is. Yeah. There she is. And by the way, she was great up here. So y'all better be. She was. And she said to me, you know, I've never been interviewed. And then she told me her age. And I said, well, you just put it back on me. Like, my God, I better be decent at this. But she said that he never encouraged her to do anything she didn't want to do, which is such a great lesson for a parent. That don't be motivated by the things that you want your kids to do that you might get something out of. That there was so much positive reinforcement, Tom, from him. And Barbara was telling me that he never told her things that she did incorrectly. Even when she appealed to him and said, what was wrong with that? He wouldn't touch it. It was all about positive reinforcement. Was that your experience from the get-go with him?
That was 100% my experience, and that was one of the most frustrating things about Harvey Penick as far as I was concerned, because I'm unbelievably inquisitive and I want to know, and I'm a type A personality, and I look at Ben and it's kind of like, put my hands on the club, take it back, swing it, hit it, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, how do my hands fit on the club, and so I wanted to know all the stuff, and he would give it to me, but he would give it to me on his terms, and it was always positive, and it was always, moving in the right direction, and I mean, we moved down here, and again, I'm 12 years old, and I can remember my dad set it up for me to get my first lesson from Harvey, and we're down in the shop and getting ready to go up the hill up to the driving range, and he says, jump in the cart, and I'm 12, and I know what I'm doing. I'm going on the PGA Tour. I know that, and we're riding up there, and Harvey says, well, what do you kind of want to do with your game? And I said, well, I really plan on going on the PGA Tour in a few years, and he looks at me and he kind of said, well, why don't we try to make the junior high golf team first? It's kind of like, okay, then we'll try to make the high school golf team. Maybe we'll get lucky and go to school at some school like maybe the University of Texas, and you can have some success there, and we'll see what happens. But he kept everything in the right perspective, and I mean, I think back on that day right now, and I'm as you can ask Sandy, and I'm not a very patient person, but I think back to that lesson, and it's kind of like, everything has its time and its place, and let's be patient about it. Can't get there faster than the engine will go.
You guys have mentioned people that have been a part of your life, the people in this room that you have played golf with since you were pre-teenage years. And a lot of that is fostered in a club environment. And getting advocacy from a teacher, from an instructor like Harvey was. He was a steward in your life. Ben, in the absence of that, you're not sitting here. You haven't had the life that you've had. Why is it so important that cultures and environments like this, you build some of the best golf courses around the world, but the golf courses are only great as the culture that exists around it. Why are these environments so redeemable for people of all ages that are in this room?
Well, I think that I know Tom would second this, and we were junior players, but the club was always great to us to let us play. I mean, there's a lot of clubs around the country that are pretty restrictive for juniors, but they saw, the Harvey and Board of Governors always saw to it that we would play and compete, but we felt like we weren't getting in the way, and they encouraged, so that's something that you learn at a young age, and you hope that spreads wherever you go. And you see it and you observe it around the country. But once again, you go back to competition, because Harvey knew that competition at a young age will help you learn and help you strive to compete. Harvey's book was so filled with so much goodness. Young players, he said it was always very difficult to start by yourself. Always find a buddy to play with. That's so important, because you learn together. And I know, I talked to somebody tonight who was 8 years old, and the mother was 8 years old. He was over at Muni, and I said, go have him find a buddy, get a friend to play. That's how you learn. And you play against that person. But there's so many values in what I have to tell this story. One day, Lester Lundell and I were sitting down at the old club, and we just said, Harvey was at the desk. A lady came in, I won't name her. She came in, I'll never forget this. She said, Harvey, can you go find my 5-wood head cover back there? And Harvey got up and went back in the bag, came back and gave it to her. She left. Harvey came up. It's very rare for Harvey to say anything. He looked at Lester and I, he said, sometimes a man's got to be half mule and half man. But his service to this club is beyond parallel. At the old club and here, he was a saint. He was a saint.
Yeah. This club has been blessed with a number of saints. I mean, Harvey obviously set the tone and the standard and the longevity and just gave so many people the opportunity. But his son Tinsley stepped in his footsteps while Harvey took the role of head pro emeritus, and Tinsley just did a phenomenal job, and he knew every member and every little need that they had. He got to know them and just always made sure that they were taken care of, and then we were absolutely blessed when Dell came in and took over as the head professional here, and I mean, he's one of the most highly recognized professionals in the game, in the business, and been honored by all sorts of awards with the PGA of America and CW, our new head professional back in the back there. This is
wonderful, Dale.
this is CW's first week, and you know, we're going to have to step it up to keep it up the pace. I mean, you know, this is what he expects out of the Austin Country Club every week. So
we'll check on him in about 40 years.
40
right?
years, 40 years, we'll be in good shape. But you know, we really have had so many role models, and you know, Ben and I are just so blessed to have grown up in a environment like this, and you know, I've said many times, you know, both of us did one hell of a job in choosing our parents. You know, Ben's mom and dad were phenomenal. My mom and dad were phenomenal, and you know, they loved the game and loved playing, and you know, we would have situations in the summer a lot of times where we would be out there, and you know, of course, in the summer, you know, somehow it didn't seem quite as hot back when we were 12 or 15 years old as it does right now. But we'd be out there all day and we'd play 36 holes. But at the old club, you know, there wasn't as many members, and they didn't play as many rounds. I think we were playing 20 or 22,000 rounds instead of 38 or 39,000, whatever we're playing now. And you know, in the summer, you would have a group that would get out there, and there would be Darrell Royal and Walter Woodle and Wally Scott and Charlie Crenshaw Sr. and Jess Root and who else? I mean, they'd have a gangsome, and it'd be 6 or 8 of them, and they'd all have their own cart. They never talked to each other. During the entire round, they'd never talk to each other. They would hit, they'd fly to their balls, and then they'd hit, and they'd kind of meet up at the green and you know, try to figure out the score that they had. And of course, we're out there trudging along, carrying our airliner golf bags and sweating bullets and you know, playing as much golf as we can. We'd play 36 holes. They might go through us 2 or 3 times during that day. They'd be playing so fast and zipping around that you know, we'd just go, oh, here they come, and we'd just step aside, and you know, they were a blur going through us.
You know, we talk about how much golf you guys played together as kids with other kids. How about with your dads? Did you? My love of golf is directly attributable to me identifying the fact that I got him uninterrupted for hours on end. And that carried over to doing many things together, traveling to other parts of the world to play golf. Did you play a lot of golf with your dads as kids?
I watched, you bet. Yeah, my dad, you know, played in this game with Ron and Billy Penn, Jimmy Conley. Oh my God, could he play, Lord, and Walter Benson. So I would tag along with them, and they'd let me hit a shot every once in a while when I was a little bitty. But then, you know, I made my own games, and you know, we had a very, very good bunch of junior golfers at the Austin Country Club when we were growing up. And then when Tom came, that just, you know, elevated the competition quite.
And Tom, you said that right away when your first impression of the environment was, God, there are a lot of kids who can play.
A lot of kids. You know, we came from Dallas, and we had a pretty good junior program up there at the course where I was learning to play. But you know, when we came down here and you know, Mom and Dad said, we're going to join the Austin Country Club. And I said, oh, man, that's pretty cool. And he said, oh, by the way, they play the ball down. They don't move the ball. And, you know, I'm playing a golf course up in Dallas that was pretty ratty, and you had to move it around. I mean, to have a chance to hit a shot. And I'm thinking, wow, I don't know whether I can do that or not. But, yeah, we came down here, and it was amazing. And, you know, yeah, I had a lot of opportunities to play with Dad. There were a number of dads and sons that played. There was good friend of Ben's and mine that grew up here, same age as Ben, but went to my high school. That quite honestly, I think Bob Elliott, who was head pro up in Northwood, up in Dallas, if he had not grown up in Austin, Texas, with the competition that he had here in Austin, Texas, with especially Ben and I being the same age and same school, I think Bob would have been a PGA Tour player and had a very good success. But his dad and Bob and Dad and I played a lot of golf on Sundays and had the matches, and it was great.
Who was the biggest hustler in the club? You mentioned names of, seriously, who was? Every club has got a handful of hustlers. And the ones who are laughing loudest are probably guilty. Ben, growing up, like who was there a guy that your dad dog cussed?
Roan? Johnny B? You know, Roan was always one of those guys that would kind of cry you to death, and he kind of, oh, I need more shots and all that stuff. And then he'd go out and just thump you like crazy. So Roan was pretty good.
Really good.
Yeah.
You know what? The Dr. Canati, where is he?
He's guilty.
I know. Listen, I thought about tonight. I have to apologize to Dr. Canati. I'll tell you why. I walked into Harvey's shop one day and I saw this driver that Dr. Canati had ordered from McGregor. And Dr. Canati played on the Ohio State golf team. And I looked at this club, and that's the most beautiful driver I've ever seen in my life. It was a Jack Nicklaus 271 driver.
6 screws?
Yeah, 6 screws. And I said, Harvey, whose club is that? He said, that's Dr. Canati's. I don't think that he'd mind for you to go and hit it if you want. So I took that thing, and it was the most beautiful looking club you've ever seen, and I hit this thing. It was sublime. And I came back into the shop, and I said, God, this thing is unbelievable. He said, well, I may go have to talk to Dr. Canati. I said, would you please? And I took that thing. I always felt bad about that. I mean, it was beautiful. I don't think I've ever had a better driver. Oh, God, it was a great driver.
People who feel bad and apologize 50 years later.
I know.
I didn't know we were going to confessional tonight.
Oh, my God.
So we have a fireworks display so we've got a hard out. So I hate that we've got to conclude this. But Tom, I want to start with you. For somebody who has spent so much time at not only here, but the Riverside location and all the formative years with Ben, the things that mean the most to you about this club, what are they?
Oh, wow. Well, we've got a fantastic facility. I truly think, of all the architects that have been around, Pete Dye, I think, is probably, if not the best, certainly one of the top 2 or 3. And we play one of Pete's best. Our golf course is fantastic, and our club is great. But, all it is a golf course. A club is people. And we've got a lot of great people here. And Sandy and I were walking around out there. We tried to get in line to get on the Ferris wheel, but there are too damn many kids out there. So they kept cutting in line in front of us, and so we never got on the Ferris wheel. But having been in this club, going from 12-year-old kid, seeing this club all the way until now I'm about to turn 75, and I look at all the family out here. And of course, there's so many people that I know and love and grew up with and played golf with and had so many good times with. And then I look at the young families out here and all the kids, and I think a club is the people. It's it's nice to have a great clubhouse. It's nice to have a great golf course. It's nice to have all the facilities, but it's that right there.
I'll tell you what, I'll forever be indebted to this club, not only for the people that we grew up with and learned with, but y'all may not know this, but when this club was being built, I came out and watched it being built with Pete Dye, and his construction foreman was Rod Whitman from Canada. And I would come out and watch it. One day he said, "You know what, you need to meet my friend Bill Coor." I said, "Okay." He said, "I've known him from East Texas." He said, "I think y'all might." Well, Bill and I have been together 39 years, just as long as Julie and I have been married. So I'll be forever indebted to Pete and Rod and this club. You have a great club, and Tom is so right. It's the people. You want to see your kids grow up in the right way, and you be around people, and you know, it's people you meet along the way. That's why we're all here. Y'all are very lucky to have had this facility, but to learn and be and love one another, encourage them. You have something very special. Happy anniversary to all of you.
Love you, man.
Love you too. Love you too.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks very much. So everybody, if you can make your way outside over to the driving range for the fireworks display, and on behalf of all of us, thank you to Ben and Tom, and thank you all for being here.